Unique, underwhelming, underappreciated, and unforgettable. A console designed just for you. The Nintendo Wii U released at a crossroad in gaming, where mobile devices were the boogeyman of the industry and console hardware was becoming ever powerful. Riding off the success of the Wii, Nintendo was almost untouchable. But after losing a sizable chunk of its core gamer audience and the stutter step that was the launch of the 3DS, people began to question if Nintendo still cared about competing with Sony and Microsoft. The company's first full HD console, expanded online capabilities, and a controller that has a tablet built in? These were some of our first glimpses into what was the first console of the 7th generation of gaming. A glimpse that turned into an eye-opening evolution for Nintendo by the end of the Wii U's life cycle as a piece of hardware that ultimately wasn't there. My Wii U experiences began in high school, a few years after the console launched. While my family had a Wii while I was a kid, I never really sank myself very far into it outside of Wii Sports, Smash Bros. Brawl, and Guitar Hero. So I really wasn't too invested into the Wii U until spring of 2014. That year in high school, I was big into Mario Kart 7 on my 3DS, spending hours unlocking everything solo and racing with friends during lunch. When E3 of 2013 came around, my friends and I were beyond excited for the announcement of the Wii U's own Mario Kart game. So much so that when prom rolled around in 2014, one of my buddies ended up staying up all night to unlock a good portion of the game's content in preparation for our prom weekend. Nerdy? Absolutely. Any regrets? Nope, none whatsoever. From the graphical overhaul from Mario Kart Wii to the anti-gravity driving sections of the track, we were instantly hooked, and so were many others. After that, I was determined to have my own Wii U and would buy my own console refurbished from Nintendo that following summer. Back then, not only did you get a digital copy of Nintendo Land like every other deluxe set, but Nintendo also threw in the critically loved Super Mario 3D World with my refurbished unit. Outside of those games Nintendo included, I also purchased the incredibly endearing Captain Toad Treasure Tracker and the then new IP to Nintendo Splatoon. Funny enough, I actually never ended up purchasing Mario Kart 8 for my own Wii U up until I started preparing for this video. When I started my sophomore year of college, I ended up starting my own retro game collecting phase, so the karting time my roommates and I had spent was on Double Dash instead. Despite its massive sales and immense popularity, the original Wii had several drawbacks, including its lack of full high-definition video quality and really poor online features in a generation dominated by Xbox Live and multiplayer games. Nintendo noticed this, and then President Satoru Iwata shared in an E3 2011 Iwata Asks interview that there were piles of things that we weren't able to fully accomplish with the Wii, from our perspective. And while it was natural for us to want to improve on those one by one, we thoroughly talked about how those issues wouldn't be solved unless a structural change occurred. One of the features from the Wii's pile was a concept of seamless integration into the living room. Nintendo not only aimed to make this console easily control a player's TV, but they also wanted to enhance the Wii's LED notifications into a device with a small monitor, allowing users to share messages and game notifications even before turning on the console. That small monitor concept would eventually evolve into the gamepad, a controller with a 6.2-inch touchscreen, dual joysticks, a built-in camera, and so much more. This would be touted by Nintendo as their most versatile controller ever. But ultimately, it would go on to be the albatross around the neck of gamers and developers alike. So, how did the Wii U fail so miserably despite following up on the company's greatest success in the Wii? Well, that boils down to a few key aspects, one of which we've witnessed before with the PlayStation Vita: marketing. Yes, I know, it's crazy to think that there is a console with worse marketing than the Vita, but look no further than the Wii U's E3 reveal trailer. Nintendo focused entirely on the new controller in a white identical to the Wii, and seemingly went out of their way to obscure what the console itself looked like. They showed off this new console using last generation controllers with the Wiimote, nunchuck, and even the Wii Fit balance board. Not only did this confuse the audience of the most hardcore gamers present at E3, but it really confused casual users that already owned a Wii and assumed that this was just another accessory for their console. Alongside a bizarre introduction and a really dismal marketing campaign was poor third-party support from developers. Nintendo did come out with a fairly robust offering at launch, with great ports of popular 6th generation titles like Assassin's Creed 3, EA Sports titles like FIFA and Madden, and even Call of Duty Black Ops 2. On paper, these all sound like massive wins for the Wii U, considering whenever the Wii got a port of a game like Call of Duty, it was really in name only. However, in reality, most of these games had already been out on the other consoles for months, and the Wii U user base was nowhere near large enough to make a game with multiplayer features like Black Ops 2 have an impact. Not helping the fact were the online features that Nintendo improved on, still being far inferior to the juggernaut of Xbox Live and even the PSN. In 2012, there were still no private party or individual chat rooms, which meant in a game like Black Ops 2, you were stuck with game chat. Not a good way to draw back that core gaming audience. But back to the Wii U itself. On launch in 2012, sales were strong enough with around 890,000 sold after a month on the market. But by January of 2013, that plummeted to only a meager 57,000. Those third-party developers that were so excited for the prospect of the console and its gamepad immediately scaled back plans for exclusives. By the summer of that year, both EA and Ubisoft shared that they would shift focus away from the Wii U and onto the then new PlayStation 4 and Xbox One. Ubisoft CEO Yves Guillemot outright told Kotaku that "we need more sold" in order to justify more exclusive games and features for their ports to the console. Even Nintendo's own game output was quite slow early on too, with Nintendo Land and the new Super Mario Bros. U being launch titles that didn't help to draw in that core audience. While titles like Super Mario 3D World, Pikmin 3, and The Legend of Zelda Wind Waker HD released in 2013, major titles like Super Smash Bros. And Mario Kart 8 wouldn't come out to the Wii U until later in 2014, when the console was dead in the water. 2014 also saw the introduction of the Wii U's biggest problems, the other 7th generation consoles, with the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One. As I previously shared, once those consoles hit the market, most of the third-party developers jumped ship and refocused their efforts on what were undoubtedly the more powerful and, most importantly, more popular consoles. In a similar move to the 3DS, Nintendo dropped the price of the deluxe Wii U to $299 and discontinued the base Wii U in the months leading up to the launch of the PS4. This proved to increase sales greatly, over 200% by the end of that month, to reach around 5 million units sold overall by the end of 2013. Unfortunately, after a rough holiday season, Nintendo needed to wave the white flag and slash the sales forecast for 2014 from 9 million units down to 2.8 million. On the contrary though, the PS4 had sold around 4 million units by the end of 2013. While the Xbox One had an incredibly rough announcement at E3, even it managed to sell 3 million units before the new year, which cemented the Wii U's place as a distant last in the 7th generation. To me, this is when the Wii U was relegated to either being a secondary console for those who already had a PS4 or Xbox One, or it would be a console to buy if you already had a gaming PC. Looking back at the Wii U in 2025, a lot of positives can be seen in hindsight. While the console lost the third-party support Nintendo fans had been praying for very early on, this seemingly forced Nintendo's hand into going all in on creating these experiences by themselves. If you were a fan of Platinum Games' work, then not only did you have Bayonetta 2 as a Wii U exclusive, but you also had the weird and wacky Wonderful 101 to scratch your hack and slash itch. If platforming was more your style, then Nintendo had no shortage of those for you either, with new Super Mario Bros. U, as well as its new Super Luigi U expansion, alongside a new 3D Mario game in the renowned Super Mario 3D World. At one point, Nintendo also said, "Fine, you do it," and released Super Mario Maker, which put you in charge of designing your own side-scrolling Mario platformer with the gamepad as your partner. Alongside those traditional Mario offerings, the Wii U would receive staples in its library with table stakes such as Mario Kart 8, Super Smash Bros. U, Pikmin 3, Donkey Kong Country, and eventually its own Zelda game in Breath of the Wild, which we'll get back to a bit later. Nintendo also wasn't afraid to take risks and introduce new games and franchises, with my favorites of Captain Toad Treasure Tracker and Splatoon, alongside Pokken Tournament, a Pokemon-themed Tekken fighting game, and Hyrule Warriors, a hack-and-slash mix of Zelda and Dynasty Warriors. If all those weren't enticing enough, the Wii U would also become your definitive virtual console machine, as not only were you able to access and play numerous games from the NES, SNES, and Game Boy Advance libraries, you also had the entire virtual console from the Wii available through its backwards compatibility, making the Wii U a jack of all trades. To close out the video, let's talk about what I think the largest lasting portion of the Wii U's legacy is: the Nintendo Switch. While that statement sounds a bit weird the first time around, looking back at what we discussed, its idea has been here since the inception of the Wii U. At the start of the video, I talked about how the Wii U's E3 launch trailer was incredibly confusing and focused on playing games away from the TV using the gamepad. Seeing that, it's not too big of a jump to get the Switch, which is a full handheld console that is also able to play on the TV. And before you go, oh well, no one's actually played the Wii U like that, I present as evidence myself. During a hurricane years back when our house lost power, I actually used my Wii U when we had our generator up and running. I was able to play Shovel Knight and Captain Toad while having my Wii U just connected to power. It made a mundane moment in time much more enjoyable and brought me closer to that personal dream of having the full console games playable anywhere. Nintendo also learned from the Wii U's failures in order to produce a console like the Switch. They sharpened their focus, which turned the concept of the gamepad as a new way to control games into being a hybrid device capable of both handheld and console play. The Switch's marketing also shows Nintendo learning from the Wii U, as its original launch trailer is able to clearly communicate not only what the Switch is, but what it's also capable of. That first reveal trailer still gets me excited to play my own Switch, and it did an amazing job of showing off how seamless you can transition from TV play to on-the-go handheld play. Reggie Fils-Aimé would also share that, I would argue that the difference is we are doing a much better job in clearly articulating the Nintendo Switch proposition. And we're also working hard to have this continuous, steady cadence of games that in the end, Wii U did not have. That steady cadence of games the Switch received in its launch year also has the Wii U to thank, as the console's strongest launch title in The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild was originally slated to be the Wii U's first exclusive Zelda game. Having Breath of the Wild undoubtedly carried the launch of the Switch, but other Wii U staples came into support later on, with the biggest being Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. Announced in January of 2017, alongside Splatoon, another Wii U heavy hitter, and released in April of that same year, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe would go on to be the best-selling Nintendo Switch game, with over 64 million units sold. Fun fact, as of writing this video, over 146 million Switches have been sold, meaning that Mario Kart 8 Deluxe has over a 44% attach rate on consoles sold. Absolutely insane. As a matter of fact, if you take a look at the Switch's best-selling game list, 4 out of the 10 on it were originally Wii U titles, with many below that also migrating over from the failed console. The Nintendo Wii U is without a doubt one of Nintendo's biggest sales failures. It's their worst-selling home console by far, with only 13.56 million units sold since its release in 2012. It undoubtedly contributed to their financial struggles, where the company operated at a loss for 3 years straight. Yet despite this, the Wii U is still beloved by many around the world. But that doesn't mean I think that it's a console you must have in your collection. The main reason for that is most of the titles we fondly remember from back then have made their way onto its successor. This has allowed games that the hardcore Wii U fanatics loved to be enjoyed by tens of millions of people more than before. Games that were beloved by niche audiences on the Wii U, like Splatoon and Captain Toad Treasure Tracker, would go on to nearly double and triple their sales when sold on the Switch. This leaves the Wii U in a very interesting position. Flagship games like Smash Bros., Mario Kart, and Zelda that are usually pretty expensive on other old Nintendo consoles are incredibly cheap for the Wii U. The hardware, though, is a bit of a different story, as consoles with the gamepad go for around $140 to $180 depending on condition, meaning you're better off just spending your money on a Switch to play those games on a much better platform, leaving the Wii U to be forgotten to time. A console touted for being designed just for you, but that letter in turn has taken on many other words. Underwhelming, undersold, underappreciated, and now I think unnecessary. I thoroughly enjoyed my Wii U when I first bought it, and I also had a great time going back to it for this video. But just like back in 2018, I don't really find myself yearning to go back to play this console once I'm done filming like I did with the Vita. Mainly thanks to the popularity of its successor, the Wii U is a console that I ultimately rarely play, and it's yet another example of a piece of hardware that wasn't there. Thank you all for watching. Let me know your thoughts and feelings on the Wii U in the comments down below, if you owned one back in the day or if you bought one now and what you feel about it. And if you haven't checked out my PlayStation Vita video, I highly recommend it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one.